Good afternoon to everyone. Today's topic that is going to be brought is called Animals Should Be Kept in Zoos, where the position in favor will uphold that zoos should exist to help preserve species, while opposite side will uphold that zoos are not the right place for animals.
I would like to start off by quoting what a smart woman once said. People forget what zoos do, and if it weren't for zoos, we would have so many species that would be extinct today. And this was said by Betty White. For many years, it has been thought that zoos are a place for captivity of animals, but it is not anything like that. Zoos are a place for keeping animals safe from us humans, because if it were for us, many animals would be extinct already. According to ThoughtCo.com, 6 species have been saved from extinction since 2017. These animals depend on these institutes to survive. It is not only mere entertainment, as one sees, but these places have to get money from somewhere in order to keep taking the special and unique care each and every animal needs. The main goal of a zoo is to have the animals safe and healthy conditions.
Today, as the opposite proposition, I will start defining what is a zoo, which is an area where animals, especially wild animals, are kept so that people can go and look at them or study them. Several researchers have found that 59% of the children who took an educator tour didn't have a positive educational outcome. And these numbers keep increasing to 66% when the children took an unguided tour. In 2003, the Wall Street Journal informed that nearly half of the nation's zoos are facing spending cuts. People attendance at zoos is going down by 3% nationally, and the funds that are intended to provide better conditions for the animals are often used in aesthetic enhancements. On the other hand, a competitive study made by the University of Oxford found out that animals such as polar bears, lions, tigers, and cheetahs shown clear signs of stress and psychological dysfunction in captivity, since wild animals need to be in their natural habitat, which is free. In species that aren't domestic, don't develop all their adaptive capacities when they are in captivity, according with National Geographic. Leaving this aside, wild animals, birds, are another example since they cut out their wings to prevent them from going away. Therefore, during the time, it's been a highly played topic since its high presence in newspaper with news of mistreated and killed animals in zoos. The following video that I will show you is a proof that many animals are being mistreated and killed in zoos around the world. And this is just a tiny part of many more.
It has been shown that most of the species are better adapted to the optimal conditions of a captivity than a free environment, with the under control variables. Only killer whales and sharks have a similar or slightly lower survival statistics. This argument should be vital to show that the maintenance of these centers is essential to develop into the conservation of many species. In this study, the genetic of mechanisms that are in favor of this adaptation at the same time. The zoo must be the facility of the study and the conservation of animals. The zoo is considered an instrument of zoology. The priority should be the conservation of these species, not the entertainment of its visitors. The European Directive and Spanish Law 31/2003 are very clear. Zoos should be a source of knowledge available to citizens, scientists, and universities, and those whose purpose is the conservation of species. The problem is to control the centers outside this norm, not the norm itself. In this way, helping species and this in that may be in danger of extinction, and even also helping them with all the needs they occupy that the humans can provide to them, since these species are from the place where they cannot fight alone. So I strongly believe that we humans can help them.
There are many cases that show that the vast majority of captive breeding programs do not release animals back into the wild. The offsprings are forever part of the chains of zoos, circuses, petting zoos, and the exotic pet trade that sells, buys, barters, and generally exploits animals. One of those cases, for example, is that of an Asian elephant named Ned, who, despite being born in an accredited zoo, was later found and confiscated from an abusive circus trainer. While some consider zoos a safe space for animals, there are some studies, like the one Clarissa mentioned, that show that animals in captivity suffer from boredom, stress, and confinement. No pen, no matter how humane or drive-through safari, can compare to the freedom of the wild. Besides, removing individual specimens from the wild further endangers the wild population, because the remaining individuals will be less genetically diverse and may have greater difficulty finding mates.
As Gitzely and Paulina have explained, it's not an exaggeration to say that colossal number of species are going extinct across the world, and many more are increasingly threatened and risk extinctions, and zoos have helped with this. This also helps for education. Many children and adults, especially those in cities, will never see a wild animal beyond a fox or a pigeon, let alone a lion or a giraffe. Sure, documentaries introduce you to them, and a lot of ancient animals are on display in museums, but that really is just almost nothing to seeing a living creature in the flesh, hearing it, smelling it, and watching what it does, and having the time to absorb the detail. Also, this helps with the research. If we want to achieve saving many wild species and restore and repair ecosystems, we need to know about key species, how key species live, act, and react. Being able to study animals in zoos where there is less risk and less variables means really changes can be affected on a wild population with a few fewer problems.
I do agree with you, but let me tell you something. From an animal rights standpoint, humans do not have a right to breed, capture, and confine other animals, even if those species are endangered. Being a member of an endangered species doesn't mean the individual animal should be afforded fewer rights. If people want to see wild animals in real life, they can observe wildlife in the wild or visit a sanctuary. Let me tell you something. A true sanctuary do not buy, sell, or breed animals, but instead takes in unwanted exotic pets, surplus animals from zoos, or injured wildlife that can not longer survive in the wild.
In favor, we want to conclude by saying that the zoo is an instrument that helps science to learn more about animals and even help them these different species while protecting them from extinction. It is proven that animals adapt better to a place like these than out in the wild. The zoo sees it to be an instrument that helps science when it becomes only an entertainment for visitors. It is essential to create urban learning centers while citizens are educated about respect and love for animals, even those that do not belong in their natural habitat. Annually, more than 700 million people visit zoos around the world. Zoos are essential for animals in need.
In conclusion, as the opposite side, taking into account the statistics mentioned before, we are convinced that zoos are not an appropriate place for animals as they are not recreated place to study them. It's important to make emphasis in the point that for animals, it is stressful to live in these places since they develop psychosis, which leads them to become abnormal compared with free animals. On the other hand, since they are departed to the wild, they are at a greater risk in their natural habitat, since by remaining in captivity, they lose their mating and defense skills, leaving them defenseless in their natural habitat. And for all these reasons, we support this motion and propose not to visit zoos and instead give donations to NGOs that promote the conservation of species and visit animals in their natural areas. Thank you all for hearing us today.